think that's pretty good. So hope everybody had a great weekend, and hope you're excited about continuing the art gallery workshop. Last week we finished up part 2, creating your storyboard and character design. I don't know if any of you have went in and actually watched the tutorials yet, but hopefully you have. The tutorials really help in understanding how to create your characters when you're constructing them. Also for setting design in your stories. No matter what your story is, from picture book to chapter book to comic book to graphic novel, setting is important. So by now you should have your storyboard finished. Of course, your story's written. You should know what your characters are going to look like, how you're going to draw them or depict them, and you should have a kind of an idea of what each page of your book will look like through your storyboard. Remember, that's your blueprints, okay, to creating your book. I did have a couple questions today I want to address really fast before we start. There are a few students that are interested in creating images for their book from images that are already existing. So basically what they want to do is to pull a picture or an illustration or some sort of image and use it in their book. Now, this is something that I'm okay with, but that doesn't, I don't want to open that up so that everybody sort of, if you draw, I want you to draw. I want you to create the artwork, whether it's digital, whether it's pen and ink, whether it's using the supplies given to you like the colored pencils and things for color. If you have supplies of your own that you want to incorporate, let's say you have, I don't know, charcoal colored pencils, or if you have even watercolor. If you want to create and use your own supplies to create your own choice of color, that's perfectly fine, and it's okay to use images in your book. But here's the one catch with that. There's a big issue. If you're interested in doing this as a career one day, whether it's illustration or work with graphic design, if you want to be a comic artist, a cartoonist, if you want to be a game designer, if you want to work with businesses and creating their logos, no matter what it is you choose to do in this field as a career, there's a big word that hangs over our heads every single time we start a project, and that's called copyright. If you notice on every single publication in the library, if you pick it up and you open it up to what's called the front matter, which is the front of the book, the front matter of every book is the first few pages. And there's always a page in every book, if you open it up, every published book, that's called the copyright page. On the copyright page, you're going to find information about the book, who created it, who owns the rights to that book, basically who came up with the idea, okay? The copyright page tells the reader that that work is protected by law. So you can't pull an image from that book and say, this is my own creation, and then sell it. Now there's leeways we can use. So you can basically draw your own interpretation of a character. Okay, so let's say that you really enjoy Transformers, all right? And you come up with a few ideas for Transformers and you pull ideas from the Transformer line. If you're creating artwork for your own personal use, there's a lot of leeway, you can create anything you want. But where we get into issues is when we create something and we use images that other people have created that are copyrighted by them and then project them as our own ideas, and then we turn around and make any type of profit from that, that can get you into a lot of trouble. So try to stay original. So with that being said, if you're choosing to use images that are already existing in your book, I highly suggest you alter them. Collage is the best way to put it. Create a collage to set up your images. So you pull different pieces from different images together to create your image. Okay? Also, I will say this too. You have to be very careful whenever you create images that are already existing in your book, because if you create a really interesting story. Now, the whole point of this is at the end is students created work. Let's see how far we can take it. I'd like to see you become published. I'd like to see you start generating an income from your work. It's already happening in a few school districts in our state, especially in our region. If we get to that point at the end, you've created an awesome story. It's just a story that I believe in, and we want to try to get it published. If you've used a ton of images that reference other things, so if you have Pokemon My Little Pony or something that just sticks out as, okay, this is definitely from this other type of story. What happens is that limits us. There's no way I can present that to a publisher and say, can we publish this? Because they'll take one look at it and they'll see the, characters from Adventure Time and they'll say, there's no way. Okay, so I don't want you to limit yourself in that regard. All right, but you can use images that are already created. So let's go ahead and jump into this week. We are in week 4. Hopefully it's projected correctly on your screen. If it's backwards, then it's okay. We'll try to flip that around during post-production or pre-production on the video, okay? But week 4, and week 4 is all about penciling your page. Now, I know this sounds like, okay, there's no way we could fit 45 minutes into penciling a page, but we could do hours, we could do days, weeks on penciling. I wish that I could come to your school and go through basic drawing with you and teach you the things that I've learned that would help you to create your artwork. But we don't have, we have 8 weeks here. So what we're going to do is kind of just give you the basic foundation of the tools you're going to need to create your book. Penciling your page means that you're going to take your storyboard, which we have created based on your book, with your character design, and you've got to know the placement of your words on your page. Those are the elements that you have to know before starting your finished page. Penciling is the first step that all artists, cartoonists, graphic designers, animators, game designers use in the process of creating their product. Okay? Penciling your page means that when you start working on this finished page, that's what your page is going to look like when it's published. So you're working towards an end goal here of creating a finished page for your book. And so you want to take it slow. You want to use your eraser. You want to correct mistakes, because whatever you produce during the penciling part of your pages, that's what your book's going to look like when you color it, ink it, so on. Okay? So pencil your page. Now penciling is an interesting step, and if you didn't have your storyboard, what's going to happen is you would be trying to create your characters, you'd be trying to set up a setting, and you'd be trying to figure out where you're going to place the words all at once without knowing, and that would be absolutely, and I misspelled pencil, so we'll add a C here. There we go. It's kind of hard to talk and write at the same time. There we go. So that's what editors are for, by the way, which would be a good portion here to talk about editing. But your editor in this process may be your teacher. So she might say, if she sees a misspelled word, a run-on sentence, a sentence fragment, if she sees a compound sentence or anything that's going on with your grammar or your vocabulary, and maybe she'll correct your story. That's a big process in this too. So hopefully teachers have overlooked stories and made their red marks, and so we have nothing like this going on inside the pages of your book, okay? I am going to promote a website this week on the Holler called the WIN website. It deals with career readiness, so if you are in high school or getting up into the grades where you're getting ready to go into high school and you're interested in maybe doing some of this as a career one day, then this website basically offers you every single avenue you could take to work within the arts as a career one day. And I'll post the information about that online this week to kind of get you prepared for that, okay? Now, this is really your time to shine. So when you start to create your pages, this is your time to create something that hopefully will be used at the end of this project in a way that we could set up book signings, we could produce large quantities of your book, we can set up events where you are showcased. It is about you, the student. It is about showcasing the talent in the KVAC region, there's a ton of talent. What I seen at Belfry High School last week literally blew me away. I could not believe the amount of time and attention that was going into their work. And honestly, it gave me, it gave me hope and energy to push on in this. When you see students taking stuff seriously, it really makes a difference. And I know a lot of you are. And I know I've not been able to really see a lot of your work, but I imagine that I'd be really impressed with all kinds of students' work out there. And I can't wait to see your work. And I genuinely mean that. This is it's a passion of mine. It's a passion of mine to see students create their own work, share their own ideas, and take it seriously and get excited about it, okay? So penciling your page. The objective here is to draw each page complete with your characters, your setting, and your words. So those 3 elements you have to know prior to ever starting to draw any lines on your finished page, okay? Remember back when we did our storyboard, we talked a lot about using these rough sketches. Remember the stick figures or the Marvel method with the circles? So we use these to help guide us, to show us what our page would look like. So you may have a storyboard with images that look a lot like this, and then at the bottom you may have some words, okay? And so with that storyboard, you are able to make very rough sketches. That's the whole idea, all right? To make very rough sketches so that you know what's going to appear on each page. That was the goal. With the penciling portion of this project, we're not talking about rough sketches anymore. You should be equipped with everything you need to do to create a finished page for your book right now at this point. So you should be able to sit down, take those elements, your storyboard, which depicts your characters, your setting, and your words, the layout of your book, to create the finished pages for your project. Okay? All right. So before you ever start penciling, we're going to kind of go over a few examples of what you need to kind of think about. Now, I have to use a marker here. If I used a pencil, you would not be able to see anything I'm doing. So you have to pretend with me a little bit today that what I'm doing is every mark that I make is going to be with a pencil. Okay? But I'm actually using a Sharpie marker. All right? We're going to do a little make-believe today. But if you watch the tutorials on the Holler with character design and setting and landscape design, you already know that I'm drawing on there with blue or black stylus pen. So I'm making blue or black marks. With that, it doesn't resemble a pencil line, but so you're already equipped to have to kind of make believe with me a little bit on this. All right. So I want to use examples from my work to kind of show you how I get ready to construct the finished page. So you pencil everything in first. You want to not press down very hard either. You're gonna make mistakes. This is the time to make corrections, to make changes, to do what you need to do to get the penciled version where you want it. So let's pretend this is a perfect square and that's a page of your book. Now, obviously, I can't show examples from every option: chapter book, graphic novel, comic book, and picture book. I'm going to have to choose a couple of these with the time limit we have to go over this, okay? So I'm going to use a picture book to show you basically how to lay out the pencil version for your page, okay? So you're using your storyboard, and you're going to press down lightly, and you're going to draw out everything that's going to appear on your page. If you're working with comics, this is going to be the part where you're going to first draw out your panels, so where your boxes are, and then from there, you're going to draw everything, pencil everything inside those boxes, okay? So pretend with me for a second that I'm using a pencil here, and I'm going to be penciling this page, and we'll just pretend this is a story that I've written, and this is one of the characters that I've created, and we'll show you kind of how to go about this, okay? So I'm drawing in the character. I know what my character looks like, referencing my storyboard, and I'm going to put him right here in the page, middle of the page, introducing him as the main character, okay? And we'll draw him out here. Now this is in pencil, remember, all right? So there's our character. So I may want to add the setting behind him. So as we could put maybe lockers. We have lockers behind him here. And so I establish the setting, okay? Draw some lines to represent that. When you're penciling in your page, you're working towards the end goal of eventually adding color or inking this. So you're working towards making your job simpler at the end. If you press lightly on your page, then you're going to be able to erase those pencil lines more easily at the end. So keep that in mind as you're producing your pencil page. So you pencil it all out. Remember, you've got to think about where your words are going to go, and it's different for every option, from chapter book to graphic novel, especially between the comics and the chapter picture books. You're going to know where your words are on every page before you start. So we're going to say once upon a time. There we go. Once upon a time. All right. Now, I want to address the text for a second. Let's say you're penciling in your page. You know where your words are going to appear on your page. There's different ways to place those words on this page, right? Last week we had a question about, can I type up my story using like a Word program or on a computer, print off those words, cut those words, and paste those on my page? What happens is when we do that, we can scan it, and the words are in some sort of font that's not handwriting. Okay, it may be easier to read that way. That's okay to do that. It's going to be a little more work on you, but if you want to go down that route, that's perfectly fine. Okay, But the main point with this is to know where your words will appear before you pencil in your page. Okay? So let's look at a couple examples here. This is a book that I just finished. It came out this weekend. This is called Owen Al's Wise Words. I don't know if you could kind of see it there. But this book was written by Julia and Melinda Richardson. Okay? And it's a book about Owen, who's an owl, obviously. And Owen meets all sorts of different birds. Now, this entire book was created using colored pencil. Okay, you see that? And if you look really close, and I hope you can see it on the screen, you notice here that the page doesn't have any pencil lines. If you were to look really close on this page, you would not see any pencil lines left. The reason for that is I pressed down very lightly before I finished the page out. So the lines on the page only represent your boundaries. Think of a coloring book. You're creating your own coloring book. You want to just have enough guideline to show you where your images are on the page or on the sheet. And then when you go to color, the graphite or the pencil lines should basically fall underneath the color that you apply to the page. Okay? Now it's a whole different story with comics. With comics, graphic novels, the like. You're going to pencil everything in just like you do with chapter or picture books. At the end of that, you're going to add your ink. You're going to do your inking. The great part about comics is you get to erase. Once that ink dries, you take your eraser over the entire page, erase that, the pencil lines go away. The only thing you're left with then is the ink. Okay? So with Owen, on every single page, I went by a storyboard. I knew what the characters would look like. So before I ever started producing the images for this book, I knew exactly what was going to appear on every single page. All right? So every page is drawn out, thought out. The characters are already set. And you notice the placement of my text. That's important. One of the jobs that I had for this book as well, not only did I do the illustrations, they wanted me to do the text placement or the placement of the font. Okay? Whenever I was thinking out how to place the words in Owen Al, I wanted it not to be in one block at one part of the page. I wanted to separate the paragraphs so that the flow of the book was made more enjoyable by the reader. All right? So if you're thinking about a chapter book or a picture book, you may not stick all of your words in one section. You may actually break up the paragraph into two paragraphs. And be thinking about the reader as they're looking at your book, reading your book. Make it so that the font appears in a way that's not covering any important images of your story. You notice here that the font is right here in the grass. There's nothing going on behind it. Okay? That's important too. You don't want to put font right on top of a main character unless that's what you're going for. But that's a whole nother story. All right? I'm going to show you another example here. This is a storyboard that I'm actually working on right now for an author. It's an amazing story. It's a book that I've been drawing the character designs for. And what you see here is my storyboard. Okay? So every page of this, I printed it out. Those little pink boxes represent a page of the book. So I'm going to use this before I ever start penciling a finished page. Okay? The next step is I know what my characters look like. Here's some of the characters from this new book. Okay? So I know what these characters look like before I ever start penciling the page. Then I may even go as far as to create a colored example of the page. So here's a colored pencil page of that character. I want to know what the color will look like. This isn't going to be used in the book. The only reason I created this was to see how the color would look on the page. Now that's going pretty in depth with this. I don't expect you to do all of these things in order to prepare. If you want to do that, go ahead. That's what the professional career industry folks do. And if you want to put the time in for this project, I highly encourage it. It's only going to help you. At the end, what could happen from this is we could have some students to become published authors. It's already happened in one of our counties, and I see no reason why it can't happen in every county. The publishing industry as a whole does not have enough voices, does not have enough representatives from folks in our region, in the KVEC region. If you think about it, there's not a lot of young writers, artists that are in the profession, in the industry as they call it. We need to change that. Okay? And if you like drawing, and this is something you've enjoyed doing, then why not make a career, a job out of it one day? Okay? All right. So we're going to move on for a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look here at a couple more examples. Bella's story, for instance. This is a book that I wrote and illustrated this book. Now what I have in these folders here are the finished artwork for that page. And if you notice, it's in black and white. Okay, this is the finished artwork. I drew a box around each one. The words, once they appeared on this, I added it using a computer program. They appeared at the bottom of every page directly underneath the black box. So they were the same on every page. And what this did is it established a theme for the book. The reader knows that the artwork in those boxes will be different, but they know exactly where to look whenever they went to turn the page and they expected to see the font or the text on every page. So you could see the difference between this and Owen, for instance. Okay, Owen is the font or the words appear at various locations on every page. With this book, though, the theme of it is black boxes with the font underneath. Okay, so that's another example. All right, let's go ahead and move on. I want to try to cover everything today, and hopefully we don't run out of time here. Okay. All right, so go to the Holler. I know we haven't had a whole lot of interaction on the Holler, and I'd like to change that, especially now. This is the time when we could really just share our work. And I know the younger grades, maybe have a little trouble with uploading those files on there, but maybe your teacher could help you. Share your work. Do not be afraid in this process to say, I can't draw. That's the one rule. Remember that? We cannot say I can't draw. If you can take and hold a pencil or a marker and make shapes or lines on a page, you can draw. If you looked at the one resource that I put on the Holler, you'll remember seeing that there's a document in there, and that document shows you all of the new artists coming out right now in the industry. And if you pay attention to that document, you're going to see that not everything looks like Marvel or DC or Disney. In fact, it's the exact opposite, okay? I know it's a really crooked square, but let's pretend this is a page. Let's pretend that I have my storyboard with me. I know exactly what my characters look like. I've written a story about a frog, okay? And what I'm going to do now is pencil in one of the finished pages for my book, all right? The first thing you would do is look at your storyboard. You know exactly where your character is going to appear. You know what your character looks like, and you know where your words are going to go, okay? So let's draw this little frog in here. He's sitting on a lily pad. I'm going to pencil in lightly, not pressing down very hard. I plan on coloring this with colored pencil later. Okay, so the only thing that I'm going to do is use this as again, almost like a guide for your coloring, okay? Just think of a coloring book. If you're creating a graphic novel or a comic book, remember you want to draw those panels out first. You've got to know what space of the page is going to be used up, okay? So here we have a little frog, or hopefully what looks like a frog, and let's draw him on a lily pad here. So this is going to be on the water, and then you can add things to kind of go with that in the background for your setting, right? We can draw the edge of the pond. So this is supposed to be the edge of our pond here. We'll draw a fly here. Okay, so the fly is flown in. The frog is looking at the fly. And remember the Marvel method. Make those circles. You can see how this shape represents pretty much one big oval. Those are two small ovals. So on and so forth. Okay, so I know where the words are going to appear before I ever start. I'll try not to misspell anything this time. Okay, so if you choose to actually handwrite your text or your words on the page, you may want to very lightly use a ruler to make lines so that you can create those words so they appear level and uniform. Okay, so if this was a penciled version of this story that I just wrote, the next step in this then would be to apply color. And the tutorial video that I'm going to be creating today up at UPike is going to cover using color in your story. Okay, And so I want you to be sure and check that out. All right. This would be something for maybe a picture book or a chapter book. Let's talk a little bit about comics too while we're here. Now, if you need help drawing a specific thing, there's a couple of things that you could do about that. Okay. The first is, let's say I had a question come through about drawing a car or drawing automobiles. Okay. The question was sent to the administrator to the Holler, Bruce Parsons, and he forwarded it to me. If you have a question on how to draw something, get online, go onto the Holler website, and post it right there on the Home tab. So just type it in, ask the question, or go create a forum. I will answer that. I'll try my best to even maybe create a video or at least send you links to resources. A lot of this is going to be resourcing on your own. How to draw a cat. Go to YouTube. Type exactly that in. How to draw a cat. You will not believe the different videos that come up to help walk you step by step in using a lot of them the Marvel method with circles and shapes to draw a cat. So here with comics, let's pretend this is a blank sheet of paper. Okay? I have my storyboard. I know what my characters look like. The first thing you're going to do with the comics and graphic novels is, like I said, you're going to draw out your boxes first. Now, pretend I'm drawing in pencil again, okay? You're going to draw these boxes out. Now, the interesting thing about comics, if you've read any comic in your entire life, you're going to know what a word balloon is. The text and the font on your page, they appear differently than a chapter book or a picture book. Comics and graphic novels use things like word balloons, thought balloons, and what's called narration boxes. Okay? And I'm going to show you some examples. Now, obviously, with comics, there's no sound, right? Okay? But comics use different types of tools to show sound. Here we have a speech balloon. Let's say, and I know some of you that have maybe looked at some of the older Batman comics, you're gonna know sound effects. They use sound effects a whole lot. So we have pow, right? And then around that, they may draw a shape like this to show sound, action in the comic. The best way to figure out how to represent sound or the text, the words in a comic or graphic novel is read comics and graphic novels. It's the best way. Here we have a thought balloon. Okay? I'm sure all of you guys have seen this. Girls and guys have seen these shapes and things used in comics. And then we have the box. Now, this is different than this box. This would appear maybe in the box here at the top. And in that box would be your narration. So it will tell you basically what the story is. This covers more of dialogue or thought from the characters and then the action with the characters. Okay? Now, here's a very big point with comics. I've been to tons of schools. Ohio, Tennessee, West Virginia, Virginia, all parts of central Kentucky, every school in Pike County, a lot of schools in eastern Kentucky. I've seen this over and over and over again. When I conduct my workshops in the schools and a student says, I'm going to create a mini comic, a graphic novel, or a comic book, every single time it seems like a student will basically take a sheet of paper, just like pretend this is a sheet of paper again, and they will just draw one line like this to represent their box. That's not really the way you should do it, okay? Rulers are just essential for creating comics. What you want to do is you want to make two lines to represent one line. And what I mean by that is that you'll take your ruler like this, you'll make a line going down, you'll move it over, let's see, like this right here. You'll move it over just a little bit, okay? And you'll make another line going down right here. All right, so that you're creating your panels using two parallel lines. Parallel for the younger grades means two lines running side by side, never touching. Okay, so you'll make two lines to represent your line, and then what you do at the end is you go back and you color in, you ink in between those two lines. And what that does is it makes a thick border. It looks better. And it's more professionally done that way, okay? So you see how these two lines come together to make solid, thicker lines that represent your panels and your boxes. Be sure and do that when you're creating comics and graphic novels, okay? There's all kinds of awards out there for student-created work. And one of the goals with this is to get your work entered into those competitions, okay? Let's talk a little bit before we run out of time here, on your cover. That's something we haven't talked a lot about. The cover to your book or comic or graphic novel. When you're creating your cover, this is going to be where you use all those tools we talked about through the storyboard process. This is the main first image that anyone sees of your story. It's the most important image of your book, really. The first and foremost thing you need on your cover is your title. Okay? So you want to think about where am I going to place the title for my book? And I'm just going to write this out because I'm going to run out of time here. Now this is an actual book that's published that I'm using as an example. It's called Where is the Green Sheep? It's a picture book. Alright, so the title's at the top like this. Think about where you place your title. Think about how you're even writing your title or what font you're using. So we have Where is the Green Sheep? Okay. Now the other thing that has to appear on every single cover is your name. Okay. You have to tell who created the story. If there's some of you working together in teams where one person's illustrating, another person's writing it, it will be written by your name, illustrated by the other person's name. Okay. So down here at the bottom, you may have by, and this is the actual name of the author who wrote this particular book, Mem Fox. Okay. Now she added a border around her cover. Comics are a lot different. If you've ever seen a cover to a comic, you know basically that you have your image, the same thing as a chapter book or a picture book or something, but it's a little different. You may add a box at the top for your publishing logo, that kind of thing. So you notice here, this is an actual, like I said, cover to a children's book. And what this illustrator has done, she has established everything we need to know about this story. When she created the cover to this book, she placed the sheep on here. Okay, so we see what the sheep look like, and this is exactly how she drew them. She has the setting. We know it's someplace green, it's flowers, maybe a field. The background, if this was in color and you could see it, you'll notice that the sky is blue behind the sheep, and every one of these sheep are a different color. But the one color that's not on this is what? What do you think? Green, right? So you have like a yellow sheep, a red sheep, and a blue sheep running down this hill. And I really like how she constructed this cover, because what she did, she has made the cover interesting to look at by drawing the curvature of the grass that the sheep are running on, going straight down to the bottom of the page towards her name. Okay? And all of this stuff sort of advanced a little bit, but if you want to create a back cover to your book, you can, but that's optional. Okay, because the binding that we have actually has a back solid cover, but you can create a back cover for your book if you want. Okay, and don't forget, show your setting, your main characters, your title, and your name for your cover. Okay. Now, real fast, how are we doing on time? 2:06. 9 or 10 minutes, sir? Okay, great, thank you. If you can notice here, last night I kind of drew the Dark Knight here a little bit. And the reason I did that, I wanted to use this to show you with comics, you may think you're getting off easy because sometimes color, some comics are black and white. Okay, here's a couple examples I want to show you before we do this. This is Creepy Susie. This is more or less a book that has very limited text or words on the pages. It's a little bit like Shel Silverstein's work. So if you see here, it's more or less these little black and white drawings, and you can see that the font on each page, or the words, they're placed in similar locations on every page. So it's just kind of thick here. There's no panels in this book, so technically this is not a comic book or a graphic novel. Some of you have expressed sort of interest in creating a book where you have poetry with illustrations to it. And I talked about Shel Silverstein a couple of times. So this is one way to do that, okay? But there's one thing I want you to notice with this, and look at all comics. Just basically by what you could see on your screen right now, you could see that some of the parts of the page are darkened in more than others. You can see this very dark spot here. The camera there is darkened in. Let me find a better example of that. Okay, right here, for instance. Let's see. You notice these two characters, one is all in black and the other. So when you're drawing comics and you're inking, that's what this is called. Inking is important. If you're limiting yourself, you are drawing more with a comic or graphic novel. There is more art. There's more boxes. There's more artwork. So think about how you're inking your page. And there's one name I want you to look up and reference for this. It's Frank Miller. Okay, he wrote and illustrated and inked The Dark Knight. Okay, so be sure and look that up. Now here's an example from my work. This is There Shall I Be. This is a novel, or a chapter book even. There's small chapters in this book. And all throughout this book, there are placed in here different illustrations. And so those of you creating a chapter book or a picture book, this is one way to do that. I mean a chapter book. This is one way to do that. So you see here how the illustration appears, and you see all the words on this page, and then you have a page here. There's some words, but there's a drawing. This is what I was hoping that you would create for your chapter books. And then here's an example for comic book. This is called Johnny Hero. This is it's a really good graphic novel. And if you were to look inside this person you don't really see black lines for the boxes. So there's different ways to kind of approach creating your comic or graphic novel. But all of the artwork appears in boxes, but he did not outline them. There's a very thin line going around. And you can notice that some of the artwork extends all the way to the edge of the pages. So that's another example. Research some of your favorite works and check those out and see how they created those. So for The Dark Knight, for instance, Frank Miller, when he's an inker. He got as his start in the industry by inking comics, okay? So when he pencils in his page, some of you may know Jim Lee. He's an artist for DC Comics now. When you're penciling in your characters, you want to draw lightly, but that ink, you got to think about where you're going to apply the ink at the end. Now what I like to do with my comics, when I create my comics, I want to shade in with the pencil where the ink is going to go, okay? So I know exactly where the ink is going to go when I finish by the shading that I apply to the page. So with The Dark Knight, Batman, there's a lot of ink. There's a lot of dark areas. So that's something that you think about when you're creating comics. You may want to go ahead and shade in some to get an idea of where these things will appear, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just ink this in, the last portion here, or color it in with the pencil first. And what I'll do if we have enough time is I'll go back really fast and ink it for you, okay? There's a lot of blacks, there's a lot of shadows with Batman, so that's one good thing about it. Think about the big word is composition. We talked about that in one of the tutorials that I created. Composition basically means what makes up your page, all the different elements of your page, okay? So think about that while you're creating. And you've got your storyboard to go by, so that shouldn't be difficult. And my goal for this is for students to create an amazing story that we could hopefully try to get entered into competitions, for sure entered into competitions, but also to see if perhaps we can get your book published, okay? So if you notice here that I'm penciling this in first, I have a lot of shaded areas with my pencil, and what those shaded areas do is they show me where the ink will go when I'm finished here, okay? What you need to have ready for next week, I'll talk about that while I'm finishing out Batman here. For next week, you should have at least half of the pencil pages for your book completed. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of work, but I want you to try to have at least half finished. Okay? If you're doing collages, then you should have at least half of the artwork printed out and ready to go into your book. All right? You'll use a storyboard with those types of approaches, the same as you would with the chapter book or a picture book or graphic novel. Okay? So you can see here I've used a lot of shading for Batman. We're going to have a discussion on the Holler this week, and the discussion is going to be various ways that you research a little bit and find how different graphic designers or illustrators place the text or words on a page. Interesting ways they have done that, okay? Try to look up, Dr. Seuss does that a lot. He incorporates his drawings with his words quite a bit, and so that's a great reference. There's some newer books too that I'll post on to the Holler for resource stuff. So now let's pretend that this is going to be one of the images in my comic book, okay? Now I know I told you in the beginning you don't have to draw like Marvel or DC, and I still mean that. I'm just showing you this kind of as a treat a little bit. I know we have a lot of Batman. Any Batman fans in here? Okay, yeah. So have a few. So I'm looking forward to checking out the artwork here at Emelina. Before we started, some students brought in some of their work, and it's just amazing what I'm seeing. The talent across our region, it's tremendous. The interesting thing about Jim Lee is, and I'll share this with you while I ink this, hope you can still see it. Jim Lee grew up in inner city Boston. And while growing up, he grew up in a pretty poor family, okay? And he didn't have a lot of resources available to him. As he was growing up, a lot of his friends that he went to high school with started turning to gangs. He started getting involved with street drugs, things like that. What happened was Jim saw all of his friends going down a different path. But Jim decided that, he's going to take a different path. So he created comics. He would share these things he was experiencing. He was losing friends to drugs, losing friends to alcohol, and he would draw about it and write about it and use characters in his stories, okay? My point with this is, if you're experiencing something, either at home, at school, it's kind of rough to deal with, why don't you first try turning to maybe, it could be art, it could be music, it could be sports, and instead of turning to all that junk out there, it's going to absolutely rob you of your opportunity. And I hope you heard me on that. When you mess around with pills, you mess around with pot, you mess around with alcohol, what happens is all the opportunities that you have, it's like, think of it like a bank account. All right? You have all these opportunities deposited into your account. If you mess around with that stuff, you're risking each time. One time is all it takes. Okay? And you could absolutely overdraft that account, basically go into the negative. That means you could take away all your opportunities. It's really playing with fire. And you're going to get, you know what? I absolutely promise you. And a lot of you probably already know this. You're going to have times in your life where you're going to be offered stuff. You're going to have these opportunities, and maybe you think, well, I kind of want to do it because my friends are doing it. I want to fit in with that junk and all that. But every time you mess around with that stuff, you're limiting yourself. You may be taking away every opportunity you have at one shot. So I've seen talent in our region. I know what we're capable of. I'm super proud of everybody that's actually trying really hard for this. But you go mess around with that stuff, you might as well just stop right now and throw your paper down and not worry about it. Because no matter how well you do now, it's all going to be taken away from you if you mess around with it. Okay? But Jim Lee chose another path. And now Jim Lee draws Batman for DC Comics. He's the lead art director for the whole DC lineup. Okay? So I use my pencils to kind of guide me here, and I know exactly what I'm going to do before I ever start. Now, if I had time during this video, I could go back and I would erase all these pencil lines. Okay, but what I do have time to do real fast, I have this marker, which basically you can get at Hobby Lobby, and there's these really expensive markers out there that's called Copic markers, but you can get one of these little aqua brushes at Hobby Lobby. You fill it halfway full of ink and water, and what happens is it produces the same type of look as you'd find in these really expensive pencils or pens, okay? And that's what I do, and I refill it every time, and maybe if we have an opportunity, I can share some of my tips and techniques with you guys through a video at the end. So here we have kind of Batman. I hope it looks like Batman. I don't know what you think of it, but hope you had fun this week. Let's stick around, and if we have any questions right now, we'll take some questions. Is that okay? Any questions? Anybody have any questions at all for me? Type it into your message box at the bottom. No questions? Okay.
While we're waiting on questions, I think we have some artists in the room that want to share some work.
Awesome.
You want to share some work? Come on up. Come around this way. Come on, airtime guy. Come on. Come on up here. Come on out here, guys. Guys, keep the volume low. They can still hear us. Come on up here.
All right.
Hold yours up.
Does everybody know your name?
Get back right here.
What's your name?
Right over here, Susie.
Mercedes?
Right here, baby, so they can see you.
See.
There you go. Now hold yours up.
So it's The Bad Dragon by Mercedes LaDawn Winfrey, right? Awesome. So you have, is this a chapter book or a picture book?
It's just like a short story.
It's a short story?
Yeah.
How many illustrations do you have in your book? Total. Have you chosen a few? Oh, wow. Look at that. Can you show everybody that? Check that out, guys. That's awesome.
Good job.
It's really cool. You did a really good job. So it's going to be a chapter book pretty much, right? Short story? Just a short story.
Yeah. And I have some.
Look at that. That is amazing. That is amazing. You see what I'm talking about out there? I mean, we have some amazing talent. Okay, that's what's it.
Good job.
That is awesome, Mercedes. Good job. That is really
Right.
cool. The Bad Dragon. I'm going to watch out for that. Check it out. What's your name?
Jaden Livers.
Hey, I like your shirt. Yeah. All right, man. So what you got here? This is okay.
I was sitting over there and just decided to draw one of my friends.
Okay. Well, yeah, this is exactly the kind of cartooning that I actually love. When you see, as an illustrator, scoot over here a little bit. As an illustrator, let's say you you draw some some kind of stuff like that, right? So let's say you're a cartoonist one day and you get a job and you have to draw like farming scenes. Now that's really boring, right? Because you and I both have similar. I like stuff like this too, okay? But sometimes you have to draw stuff that you don't want. But if you were to look in my sketch pad at any given moment, you're going to see stuff similar to what's your name again?
Jaden.
Jaden. So show him again, Jaden, what you got. That's pretty cool, man. That's groovy.
And I actually wanted to show what we're actually doing for our 8th grade.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, some people we're doing a graphic novel, and some people just decided to draw. Others are going to take photographs and Photoshop their heads onto it for what they were. Some were, let's see. We got a piece of paper and it said what we were, and one says, I own a small hardware store in Mississippi. I do not believe in slavery, but you stand to make a lot of money, a lot more money during this war. Well, and
Background.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, we got backgrounds for them. And well, they're going online and they're finding pictures of people, like Civil War people, regular people, Southern Belles, whoever, and they're putting their heads on it, or some people are drawing, like one of my friends here got a farmer, so.
That is amazing. So you basically are developing every part to your story, right? And you've got your background, you've got different approaches. And that is
Background,
really
titled.
cool. Yeah, so you know what? You did a great job. I'm gonna give you two for coming up here. You'll get the Batman, and I'll give her a drawing. Mercedes gets a drawing too. Anybody else want to share their stuff? Anybody else got anything to share? Nobody?
Come on up here, sweetheart.
Come on.
Mr. Early, you want to answer a question?
Yeah, we got it.
a question.
Good question. Okay, so what's your name? Okay, Nicole, hold on one second. Let me answer a question real fast. One of my students, this is from Laurie Shepard. One of my students wants to know if you can end a story with "to be continued." Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's okay. But if you can try to make some sort of resolution to the conflict, like I wouldn't just leave it hanging right in the middle of solving the problem of the story. Maybe I don't know. That's one of those things that maybe we could talk about a little bit more. I want to hear a little bit more about her story or his story to find out. Our goal with this, with competitions, they like a finished story, but there are certain ways to leave a story to be continued with the competitions we're hoping to enter. Why don't, if it's okay, Lori, to message me on the Holler and let me talk a little bit more with you about that to kind of find out a little more detail, okay? What was the author's name of Where is the Green Sheep? Jared Huff. That is, her name is Mem. Let's see, it's right here, I'll tell you. Now she wrote it, but the illustrator, Mem Fox is the author's name. The illustrator's was a really long name, but I just included her name as the
X or just one X?
1X. Mem Fox for no. And what type of media do you recommend for our books? Okay. I'm not real sure the media in terms of, let's see, who was it? Amber Stewart. Can you kind of be a little more specific about that question? I'll try to answer it. Are you talking about the medium, like for color? Okay, good. We gave out color pencils. Now that's we issued color pencils for two reasons. If we'd issued paint, teachers would have got real mad at me. So colored pencils work really well because they can blend, and you know they're basically more to them. You can use them a lot. Paint runs out really fast a lot of times. So and it's faster. If there is any medium out there that you have access to or a student has access to that they prefer, by all means, use what you prefer, okay? It's a good question. All those are great questions.
Crayons might melt in our, do you think they'll melt in our book binder or not?
No, I think we're
okay.
I played around with the book binder. It's a good question, too, because I thought so, too, before I played with it. And I bound a couple of sketchbooks.
Yeah, it's good.
So I played with it, and the book binder is really, really cool. So even crayons will work. We didn't think so at first. But so Cole, is that your name? One more question.
Yes.
Okay. Cole, what and what's your last name?
Stamper.
Stamper. Okay, and go ahead and tell a little bit about your story.
Hold your picture up.
Hold up
Stand
real high,
back here
so-
so they can see you right over here.
There you go.
So we can get you right here and just hold yours up.
Hold
Hold
yours
it way up so they can see. There you go.
Okay. Can you guys see that? Okay.
Maybe move just a little bit closer, Cole. Let's see.
So
There
it's
we go.
Going on the Big Adventure is the name of your book, and it looks like a picture book.
Mhm.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your book, Cole.
It's a boy that likes to go on adventures
Okay. And where's the setting?
outside.
Outside? Is it near his home? Because I noticed a home there on there. Okay. How many characters are in your book?
Two.
Two characters, and what's their names?
Billy and John.
Billy and John. Are they brothers? No? Okay.
They're friends.
That sounds pretty cool. That sounds pretty
Good
cool.
job.
And what grade are you in?
Fifth.
Fifth grade,
Fifth
guys,
grade.
coming up. That is
Fifth grade.
great, Cole.
Good job.
Give me
Thank you.
students who got up around here.
Oh, the bookbinding machine. Let me say this. By the time we finish, we're trying to finish this project in 8 weeks so that we're finished before everyone starts testing because we recognize that, you'll have other things going on during that time. So we do have the bookbinder, and we will be coming out or getting your books in to try to get them bound. But it may take us a little longer to bind them. It's just going to take a while. So even though your book's completed, you may have to hang on to them until we get in order out to your school to get them bound. So, but we do look forward to going through this process. It's been enjoyable. I hope you are accessing the Holler. Those of you that haven't registered for the Holler, make sure that you do so and get on and tell us about your book. Just like these students stood here today and told us about their stories and about their books, we'd like for you to do that on the Holler. Share some of the research that you're finding about other authors and other illustrators. And just like this wonderful story that Mr. Epling shared with us today about this illustrator for Batman, he could have taken a whole other path and we would have never heard his name, but he didn't. And so that's what we're looking for you students to do, is to express your thoughts and ideas through art and on paper through story. I think we might have one more question that Mr. Epling needs to answer, and then we will be signing off.
Okay, thank you. Stops. Can a picture book contain a paragraph on each page? Yes. There's guidelines here that I want to try to keep sort of in a parameter of kind of what we expect for each type of template. But what I do not want to do is limit students, because as you know, you go into a library, you could go over to a shelf and grab seven books, lay them on a table, open them. You're going to see different ways of the author put the words on the page, how many words they put on a page, so on and so on. So I don't want to limit us, okay? If you've worked towards a certain goal and that a student has in mind, and they've used their creativity, imagination, and their tools they've learned in the classroom, and they've created a story and they know what they want to create, there's no way I want to stop that process, because that's the main goal, okay? Thank you for that question. Any other, that's from Connie Baker. Thank you, Connie. Any other questions that we have before we sign off for this week's session? Any more? No? Okay. So I'll turn it back over to Kelly.
Okay, if Pike Central would stay on with us, we're going to connect one-on-one with you. So students, if you're there in the conference room, just stay on. We're going to be projecting from Pike Central next Monday at 9:30. We'll begin session 5. But between now and then, teachers, look at our timeline to see what it is that we're expecting by week 5. And then I will send the link out this afternoon, and it will be in your calendar inbox, just like today's link was, so that you'll be able to join us next week. So students here at Emelina, let's tell them goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Monkey business.
Hang on.
So what you do now? Oh, that's really good. Yeah, we're going to do Storyboard, right?